It was raining again. A soft drizzle, the kind that doesn't soak your clothes right away but lingers like a mist, brushing against your skin as though reminding you of the weight you already carry. Amara sat by the window of a small cafe tucked away on a forgotten street corner. The yellow glow of the lamps inside pooled warmly against the glass, while the city outside blurred in streaks of gray. She held her cup of tea with both hands, not for the taste. It had long gone cold, but for the warmth. For weeks now, she had been coming here, alone, quiet. The kind of quiet where people don't ask questions, where baristas nod politely but never pry, where her silence could live undisturbed. Amara was 27, and life had not been kind. Her parents were gone, her job barely kept her afloat, and every night she returned to a cramped apartment that echoed with absence. But her struggles weren't only written in rent notices or the thinness of her wallet. They were deeper, threaded into her chest where loneliness pressed the heaviest. It was in that silence she met him. Elias. He wasn't the kind of man you'd notice right away. He sat at the corner table, always with a worn leather notebook and a fountain pen that seemed too delicate for a man with such tired hands. His hair was streaked with gray, though he couldn't have been much past 50. His eyes were sharp, though softened at the edges, like a man who had once fought hard battles and had learned the futility of winning them all. For days, they shared the same space in silence. Until one evening, when the rain was harsher and the cafe emptier than usual, Elias looked up from his notebook and said quietly, "Cold tea is a tragedy." Amara blinked. She hadn't realized she'd been staring at her untouched cup. She let out a small, reluctant smile. "I guess I stopped noticing." That was how it began. Elias didn't talk much, and when he did, it wasn't the kind of talk that filled space. His words were few, but they landed like stones dropped in still water, echoing longer than expected. Amara found herself opening up to him in fragments. Not because he asked, but because he didn't. He never pried, never pushed. And maybe that was why she could tell him things she couldn't tell anyone else. How she felt invisible. How she had dreams once but had folded them away like old clothes. How she sometimes wondered if life was meant to be survived rather than lived. Elias would listen, his fingers tapping the spine of his notebook, his gaze steady but never intrusive. Sometimes he offered nothing more than silence, and sometimes a single line. One night, after Amara confessed how tired she was of fighting battles that seemed endless, Elias simply said, "The cruelest thing about pain is how it convinces us it will last forever. It lies." Weeks passed. The cafe became their quiet refuge. And slowly, Amara's story unfolded. She told Elias about the proposal. It sounded absurd even to her ears, but it had happened. A man, wealthy beyond imagination, had asked her to marry him. He said he admired her simplicity, her honesty, her quiet strength. But Amara knew better. He didn't really see her. He saw her poverty as charm, her silence as mystery, her independence as novelty. She was a passing fascination, a story he wanted to own. And though a part of her wondered what life might look like in mansions instead of rented rooms, another part of her recoiled. Because she knew she would vanish inside his world. Her voice would be drowned out by the roar of wealth. So she said no. And that no had left her with both dignity and devastation. Dignity because she had stood true to herself. Devastation because reality was cruel. Her life was still small, still heavy, and the world didn't reward you for integrity. It punished you for it. Elias listened, then closed his notebook slowly. "When I was your age," he said softly, "I married for all the wrong reasons. Money, status, escape. And I lost myself in the process. It took me half a lifetime to claw back pieces of who I was. You, Amara, you saved yourself years of emptiness with that no." Amara stared at him, unsure whether to feel comforted or crushed. One evening, the rain was harsher than ever. The streets were nearly deserted, and Amara walked into the cafe, soaked to her bones. Elias was already there, his notebook unopened, his gaze heavy. "Sit," he said gently, and she did. For a long time, neither spoke. The rain filled the silence, drumming steadily against the window. Finally, Elias leaned forward. His voice was low, almost trembling. "I need to tell you something," he said. "When I was younger, I had a daughter. She was bright. Brighter than I ever was. But I wasn't there for her. Not the way she needed. I thought providing money was enough. I thought presents could be substituted with gifts. By the time I realized what I'd done, she had already shut me out. I haven't seen her in years." Amara swallowed, her chest tightening. She had never heard him speak so openly before. "I come here," Elias continued, "because it's the only place I can write to her. Letters she'll never read. Regrets no one else will hear. I see you, Amara, fighting to keep your soul intact, and I envy you, because I couldn't." His voice broke on the last word, and Amara reached across the table, resting her hand over his. His skin was rough, scarred in ways that told stories too heavy to speak aloud. "You still can," she whispered. "You still can try." That night, something shifted between them. Elias was no longer just a mentor. He was a mirror, showing Amara what she might become if she surrendered her truth, and showing himself a flicker of redemption through her courage. But Amara's battles weren't over. Life pressed harder. Her job cut her hours, bills stacked higher, nights grew longer and colder. She reached a point where even breathing felt like effort. One night, she confessed to Elias, "I don't know if I can keep going. Every day feels like drowning." Elias studied her for a long moment. Then he said with a quiet certainty, "Sometimes survival is the bravest thing we can do. It's not about winning every day, Amara. It's about refusing to surrender, even when everything inside begs you to." The breaking point came weeks later. Amara's landlord had slipped an eviction notice under her door. Her last paycheck barely covered food. She walked the city aimlessly that night, rain soaking her thin jacket, until her legs gave way and she sank onto a bench under a flickering street lamp. She thought of the billionaire's proposal, of how different things might be if she had said yes. She thought of her parents, of the emptiness of her apartment, of Elias and his daughter. And for the first time, she allowed herself to sob. Ugly, uncontrolled, breaking. And in that breaking, she realized something. She wasn't crying because she regretted saying no. She was crying because surviving was hard, unbearably hard, and yet she still wanted to. She still wanted to live. The next day, Amara returned to the cafe. She looked pale, her eyes swollen, but there was something steadier in her voice. "I'm not giving up," she told Elias. He smiled faintly, lines deepening around his tired eyes. "Then neither will I." Years later, Amara would look back on that season of her life, the rain, the cafe, the man with the notebook, and realize it had saved her. Not through wealth or rescue, not through miracles or sudden luck, but through presence, through two broken souls finding enough strength in each other to keep breathing. And though the world would never know, though no headlines would tell the story, the truth was this. A poor girl had turned down a billionaire's proposal, and in doing so, she had chosen herself. She had chosen survival, and that choice, quiet, painful, unglamorous, was everything.